Yesterday, Senator Rand Paul announced that he would not support any government funding proposal that includes aid for Ukraine. Now, his 10-minute speech detailed his issues with the money that we've sent to Ukraine so far. But look, we're gonna focus on one issue in particular. Let's watch.
We lack effective oversight mechanisms to ensure that the hard-earned American tax dollars don't fall prey to waste, fraud, and abuse. For over a year now, I have been asking for a special inspector general to make sure they're not stealing our money. When that has come before a vote in the Senate, the majority party in here says, no, we just want to spend the money. We don't care. Some Republicans have gone along with this as well, and they have voted against an inspector general.
I actually found his 10-minute speech pretty fascinating, so I recommend you watch it in its entirety. But today we're gonna explain what the position of a special inspector general would entail, how multiple senators have actually tried and failed to pass legislation on this issue, and how Rand Paul actually voted against making one despite his fiery comments. So first things first, what is the office of the special inspector general and what would it do exactly? Well, the office would consist of a few dozen officials who would conduct inspections and audits of the military and non-military aid we're sending to Ukraine. Now, the office would then publish its findings in a quarterly report to Congress so they can be sure that the money that we're sending to Ukraine is being used in the ways that we intended it for. There's precedent for such an office, by the way, because we already had one. We had a special inspector general for Afghanistan named John Sopko. He actually made some pretty unsettling discoveries through the audits he conducted. Sopko, who has been special inspector general for Afghanistan since 2012, found that at least 19 billion in US taxpayer funds sent to Afghanistan was lost to waste, fraud, and abuse from 2002 to 2020. It could have been much more than that, given that Sopko's office only combed through 63 billion of the 134 billion the United States appropriated for reconstruction during that period. That's billion with a B. And now whether you're in favor of or against aid to Ukraine, it seems like common sense that American people should know if the money we're providing to help them defend themselves against Russia's invasion is being spent responsibly. But the Biden administration is insisting that there is already oversight of the funds. The White House has said it agrees oversight is critical and pointed to Ukraine aid oversight already underway by existing inspectors general for the Pentagon, State Department, and the US Agency for International Development. Now, that's a common argument against the creation of a special inspector general for Ukraine. But the Pentagon can't even oversee its own affairs, let alone the money that's being sent to Ukraine. Just last November, the Pentagon announced that it failed its 5th consecutive audit. It was unable to account for 61% of its $3.5 trillion in assets. That's why several Republican senators have pushed for a special inspector general for Ukraine, but all of them have failed. First up to bat was Senator Josh Hawley. In March of this year, he tried to pass a standalone bill with the help of Senator J.D. Vance that would have established an inspector general. Hawley also tried to attach an amendment to a broader bill that would have done the same thing. But the standalone bill did not go anywhere, and the amendment was voted down. Later, in July of this year, a group of senators tried once more to create an office of special inspector general for Ukraine. The members of that group were Josh Hawley, James Risch, Roger Wicker, John Kennedy. Yes, that John Kennedy.
I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life, then I want you inside of me.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. Anyway, that proposal failed too. It was voted down 26 to 68. And one of the senators who voted against that bill was, oh yeah, that's right, Rand Paul. But why would he vote down that proposal and then complain about the lack of an inspector general? Paul claims to want John Sopko's office to take the reins on Ukraine aid oversight, whereas the bill would have created a new office of Inspector General that's separate from Sopko's office. President Biden would have been able to choose who led the new office, and it looks like that was a sticking point for Paul. That may seem like a minor issue, but it's ultimately irrelevant because look, the bill wouldn't have even passed whether Paul supported it or not. American politicians have made valid arguments both for and against sending additional aid to Ukraine. It's undeniable that Russia is committing horrible atrocities in Ukraine, and we did sign ourselves up for helping out the country when it agreed to get rid of its nuclear weapons. But on the other hand, the aid to Ukraine has not been paired with efforts toward negotiating peace talks or at least encouraging them. And there are plenty of issues in our own country that, we could have used that money for. But look, regardless of all of that, regardless of where you stand, and look, I do think that it makes sense to support Ukraine. I don't think it makes sense to renege on our promises and commitments to the country. Regardless though, it shouldn't be controversial to make sure that the aid is being spent responsibly. It's also highly concerning that the mainstream media has mostly refused to cover this story. Other than a few odd articles from Fox News and Politico on the issue, corporate media has been way too quiet on these Senate proposals. The failure of our politicians and our media to push for oversight of the aid to Ukraine suggests that there is in fact something nefarious going on. We're no cheerleaders for Putin or his illegal invasion, but we also don't want to find out 20 years from now that, like the money we spent or sent to Afghanistan, a sizable chunk of the aid to Ukraine was wasted or abused. If we're sending money to Ukraine, let's make sure we're doing it right.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.